G'day guys, Steve with Broken Sprocket, and in this video we're going to take a close look at my 1981 HJ47 Land Cruiser. Let's get started. Six-month 1981 HJ47 Toyota Land Cruiser. That would make this one a 30th anniversary Land Cruiser. I've had this car for about 4 months, and over the last 4 months I've done nothing but work on it, getting it prepared for full registration. So let's have a look at what I've done to this Land Cruiser so far. First thing I did to this cruiser when I purchased it was fully rebuild the hubs, the stub axles, and also put whole new brakes throughout the whole front of this vehicle, as the previous owner had let it go for so long that there was that much buildup of grease and grime and oil that was leaking out of it. I could barely even find the bolts to undo it to work on the vehicle, so it took quite a while to get this up to scratch, to get these hubs and everything back to the way that they should have been. Second thing I did was rebuilt this steering box component. I can't remember what it's quite called off the top of my head. I'm sure someone will put it in the comments what it is. The bottom bolt was cross-threaded. Also, this linkage arm didn't come all the way up, and replaced the drag link linkage arm ends. I then moved on to the suspension, where I rebuilt the bushes, put new bushes in it throughout the whole vehicle because the old ones were flogged out and there was quite a bit of movement in the suspension. I then moved on to repairing rust. The front of the bonnet here had rust all the way through this whole section and also in the underneath section, so I had to rebuild the whole piece of this and remove all the rust. The roof and the bonnet were the worst for the rust. The roof had the worst amount of rust, and I had to take the roof completely off, repair the underside sections of the roof, and then put it all back together and bolt it all back up. But the roof was in such bad condition, I didn't go overboard with it. I just made it safe and secure and made sure there was no rust in it, because there's just that many dents and issues with the roof. I didn't really care how it ended up looking at the end, just as long as it was safe and solid. While the roof was off, I also removed this back panel here, and there was rust in the underneath of the rubber here. That had some rust in there, but it wasn't overly bad. But while it was off, I managed to weld up those sections of rust too and keep it as minimal as I could, because I didn't want to take any of the patina away on the paint. So the thing I'm trying to do is keep it looking just like an old truck that's come off the farm. I don't want it to look too shiny or too pretty. This is all the rust that I removed from the vehicle. I tried to keep the repairs as small as possible, as I didn't want to remove the patina old weathered look that the vehicle has. Moving on to under the bonnet, first thing I did was replace the heater tap. Also the heater hoses were all replaced. The clutch was on and off. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it didn't. So I had to replace the cylinder and the slave cylinder. Now that works perfect every time. The radiator was leaking along the top tank. I had to re-sweat this whole radiator in and get that back so it wouldn't leak anymore. The rest of the radiator is pretty good. The core's nice, so it should work pretty good now. And a few oil leaks in and around the engine that I had to address. Other than that, the engine's pretty good, starts up good, runs good, and happy with it now that I've stopped all the leaks and the little problems that it had. Another cool thing with this car is it still has all the original heat matting and all these protective covers and heat protection that's still on the vehicle, which is pretty good, because it's hard to find all of those types of things now, because normally people would work on them and just throw them away, or they become that damaged that they're unusable anymore. So for this to have still all the original heat protectors and radiator underbody protectors and all of that sort of stuff's pretty cool. I had a multitude of oil leaks underneath this vehicle. It looked like it's possibly leaked oil for pretty much most of its life, and it was just caked everywhere, really thick, and it took a hell of a lot to scrape it off to even find the bolts to find the problems. The rear of the transfer case was leaking, so also was the front of the transfer case. I just replaced them with new oil seals. I had a leak under the oil spinner there on the engine. Also, the Welsh plugs were leaking. I had to replace the Welsh plugs in the vehicle.
but now I think I've got it pretty much solid. Also the stub axles were leaking. Everything was leaking. The rear diff axles were leaking, the brake cylinders were leaking, everything was needed replacement on this vehicle. So yeah, so many leaks. Just when you think you got on top of them all, you find another one. This tow bar here was off an old Ford Courier. With a few modifications, a bit of cutting and welding, I managed to make it fit the old Toyota here, so she's quite a good solid tow bar here now, so I'm pretty happy with that. It has a good sized steel tray on this ute with an old rustic floor which is a bit beaten up, but I think I like the character that it gives. The tray's a good size, it's a 6 by 8 foot tray, and I've just added these old chains, one here for the dog, and this one here is just for looks to give it that old hillbilly kind of look. The previous owner had these guards and the side step running boards. They were painted black. They looked pretty terrible. So I just stripped them down and painted them back to the original color because I think it looks better with the original color over the black. And I want it to sort of look as original as I possibly can and keep that kind of patina look in the vehicle. Moving on to the interior of the vehicle. First thing I had to do was fix the handbrake, because the handbrake didn't work at all. The cable was seized and I ended up rebuilding the whole interior of the handbrake because it was buggered, did not do anything. So that was the first thing to do. So now the car has an actual working handbrake, which is fantastic. The rest of the interior is pretty standard. I've got the standard AM radio, which still works. Well, it would if the aerial was plugged in, but I've made this whole head console from start to got it all done. I've got a new interior light in here, the speakers are up here, and I also got these visors from a 1981 Toyota Land Cruiser, 1981 Toyota Hilux. So they're on here, and I just painted them with some vinyl paint because they used to be a tan color. And I've done all the console and stuff like that so that I don't damage my dash in any way, trying to modify it to fit a stereo in there, and now I can keep the dash all standard and unmolested, which is good, and the stereo and light works a treat because the old light up here, it doesn't work, it's all fallen to pieces, so this light here works fantastic. I've got the black duck seat covers over the standard seats, they're pretty good. The seat belts are replaced, they're actually out of a Ford Courier, but they fit perfectly in the old Land Cruiser, so they're in there because the old ones were a bit frayed and crappy looking. I know I can buy original ones, but these ones here work fantastic, so no need to replace or spend big money on factory Toyota ones when these ones here do the job fantastic. And also I just added some insulation here in the roof to try and keep some of the heat out of it, and also stop that drumming noising effect, so that's working quite good. It's actually a warm day today and it's not too bad in here at the moment. To start this one here, you glow black on this one, and there's a little wire in there that actually glows and glows red. When that glows red, then you turn it over and you start the engine. That's pretty much it for the Land Cruiser at the moment, and all the things that I've done. All the lights and everything work, and this vehicle is actually ready for registration. I'm planning on getting it registered early in the new year because it's pretty close to Christmas now, and I just registered my Hilux and I don't want 2 car regos in the same month, so I'm just going to hold on until next year to get this registered, but everything works on this car and it should pass registration with no problems. Future plans for the vehicle is possibly a 2-inch lift kit and some 33-inch tyres. I wouldn't mind trying to modify the bull bar and adding a winch to the front of the vehicle, and also I want to put some insulation in the bottom section of the car because this car gets very hot when the engine's running. All the heat from the exhaust and stuff like that comes straight up into the floor, so I want to try and eliminate that and make it as comfortable, and it will also cut the noise down, so I want it to be as comfortable as I possibly can to drive this old girl, you know, to and from here and there. And yeah, that's pretty much it until I come up with something else. Thanks for watching.